Hey everybody, welcome to Paul Mash TV, bringing you the very best indie country from all over the world. And now, ladies and gentlemen, he is Paul.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Paul Mash TV. We're glad that you could join us today. And we got a real good show lined up for you. But before we do, as always, I just want to remind you, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, just click that subscribe button right down there and it'll keep you up to date with all the latest episodes when they become available. And just pay attention to the closing credits as well, because you'll have our Facebook page as well as the email address, and you can keep in touch with us there, and you'll always get a response. So we hope that you'll do that and keep us up to date with everything Paul Mash TV. Right now we have a special guest. He used to have a band, and still does have a band actually, from Austin, Texas. He lives in Camden, Tennessee right now. His name is Carey Womack, and he's the lead singer of a band called One Bad Pig. And I've been a fan of his for years, and I'm glad that we finally got an opportunity to talk to him. It's kind of a long interview this time. It's about 20 minutes long. So anyway, I'm sure that you'll like the interview as much as I enjoy doing it. So without further ado, let's start the show with Carey Womack from One Bad Pig right now. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to a brand new interview here on Paul Mash TV. And with us, we got Carey Womack from One Bad Pig. Thanks for joining us, Carey.
Absolutely, man. It's fantastic to be here, Greg.
Yeah. It's great to have you on the show. And like I said, I've been a fan of your band for years, and I'm just glad to finally meet you there.
Yeah, great to meet you.
Let's see. Now, I know probably some people who are watching this are probably friends of yours, so obviously they know the story. But for some that don't, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you came up with the name One Bad Pig?
Sure thing. Yeah, I went to the very first Cornerstone Festival outside of Chicago in 1984, and then in '85 I went with three friends, and we stopped outside St. Louis for lunch on the way up, and from Austin, Texas, where we were all from, and we ate at a local Pizza Hut, and Pizza Hut was doing a promotion with a local rock station, and they were selling these wraparound chrome sunglasses that had a tough-looking pig over on one side of the glasses, and I said, man, that is One Bad Pig. And Paul Kupek said, man, that sounds like the name of a punk band. Yeah. And so we're on the way to the festival. And so the whole way, we just had this running joke. You know how guys on a trip, road trip, whatever, will have a running joke. And so One Bad Pig was our running joke. And we came up with, different chants and choruses of songs. And, we said, okay, the one guy that's with us, Curtis, he's going to, instead of playing drums, he's going to play dashboard and hubcaps. And this guy named Freedom Noble was with us. He's going to play bass. Paul will play guitar, and I'll be the lead screamer. And so that was our running joke. Well, it so happens that we were all part of a group back in Austin that would meet up at a local Christian radio station Friday or Saturday night. And Paul Kupek did a Christian rock radio show with all the most current stuff and everything. And we'd go up there and hang out while he did his show. And then we'd get together and we'd pray. And then we'd go out in the streets of Austin, go to some of the clubs where punk and metal shows were happening, and just stand outside and try to witness to people. And we were also part of planning a local Christian music festival in Austin of all local bands. And we got to, thinking about all this stuff, and we said, hey, what if we just one time, did One Bad Pig like as a joke at this Christian music festival, And it would be this punk band, of course. And so we wrote a song, and it was a song that at the time was called Anarchy is Prison. It later sort of morphed into Godarchy, later on. But initially it was Anarchy is Prison, and Paul's girlfriend heard it, and she didn't like, intense music at all. But she said, that is really a powerful song. And we started thinking, okay, maybe this thing is more than a joke. And when we played at the 1985 Labor Day Christian Music Festival at Zilker Park in Austin, people came up to us afterward and they said, man, you guys you know, you're wild in what you did and everything, but you ministered more than anybody there. And we began to see that we could actually take this music into the clubs where we'd been witnessing outside. And that was the beginning of One Bad Pig.
Oh, okay. That's a good story there. As a matter of fact, that song you mentioned, I remember that was on your first album, Smash. That it was called Godarchy, like you said, and I remember that song. That was a pretty good song.
Cool.
So, what made you decide to become a musician? I mean, everybody has their own story. Maybe you could share with us your story about how you decided to become a musician.
You know what? When I was maybe in my first year of college or something like that, I fell in love with alternative and on the edge Christian music. You know, I didn't even realize it existed before then. I'd already felt like God had a call in my life to ministry. I certainly wasn't, you know, completely, you know, walking necessarily the way that I should or whatever. But I felt like I had a call in my life, but I just got into Christian music. And then when I moved back from Waco, Texas to Austin, I found a bunch of friends that liked Christian music, and we went to shows together and started doing this street witnessing like I was talking about. And I really hadn't been a musician, you know, up until that point. And I guess in a lot of ways I'm still not. You know, I'm the lead screamer. I'm the one that everybody has to work real hard to keep on time and that kind of stuff. But for me, it was a love of the music and a love of, you know, getting the message out there in a really intense way and getting to express it in fun ways as well as in radical ways. I guess, you know, people would ask us, is One Bad Pig a ministry band or an entertainment band? And we would say we are 100% entertainment. We just go wild, crazy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we're also 100% a ministry band. It's not either or, it's both and all the more, you know, and that was the way that we approach things. And so I guess, you know, my primary thing is just a love of music and a love of getting that message out there too.
Okay. Well, I know you pretty much already answered some of the question, but I was going to ask you what are some of your influences, and I know you already said like the alternative stuff. Are any bands in particular that stick out in your mind?
Man, some of the, I guess some of the, we, in our earliest show, that Labor Day Christian Music Festival, besides at least one, I guess we had the one original, Anarchy is Prison. We had a punked up version of a couple of praise songs put together. And then we did some covers of songs by the Lifesavers, which later became LSU or LSU Underground. But their very first album, which was on the Ministry Resources Center label out in California, out of the Vineyard, was, or maybe it was out of Calvary Chapel. Anyway, it was just really punky, you know, authentic punk stuff. And we did a couple of covers of those. We did some covers of early Undercover songs and that kind of thing. So they were, I guess, influences to some degree musically and altar boys. But really, I guess it was just a little bit of everything that we listened to. A lot of the alternative Christian artists, you know, that came along even after us, we all loved and really got into. So.
Okay, well that's good. Now, exactly how many albums have you had now? Now, on the top of my head, I know there was Smash, there was Swine Flu, there was Ice Cream Sunday. I think you had a couple of EPs out as well, I do believe.
Yeah. The very first album was. Yeah, the very first album was a Christian band, and it was really an EP produced by some people locally in Austin. And it had that early song, the original version of Anarchy's Prison on it, and had the very first version of Isaiah 6 on it, and then and the earliest one of Blow and Go, but then some others that aren't on the other albums. And then we did the 3 studio albums that you mentioned. We did Live Blow the House Down, which was a live album.
That was your live album, yes.
Yeah. And then there was a best of kind of thing that came out several years later, and then a couple of bootleg kind of live shows after that as we got together. And then 2016, we came out with Love You to Death. And that's that CD there. And we're really, really proud of it. You know, you never know, getting back together. It was our first new studio album in 25 years.
Wow.
That was the gap between studio albums. And you think, oh, man, you know, do we still got it? Is it going to hold up? And we really felt like, oh, man, it absolutely held up. We're really proud of it.
Right. Yeah, I guess that is true, because I think it was like in the early 1990s. I remember it was when you came out with that last album. And then
Absolutely.
And then also, like you said, Blow the House Down, you actually had a video that went along with it. So, and I've had both of those albums. So
yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And I think I like the video better than the audio, but personally.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Us too, because it just, you know, I won't say that we were ever the tightest band or the most musically, you know, intricate band or whatever. It was just wear our hearts on our sleeves and go all out, and, you know, great big sense of humor and poking fun at ourselves, as well as just being wild and crazy. And so we had all kinds of stage antics and stuff, and a lot of that showed up on that video. And, you know, that was a big part of us, is that live show where 100% mayhem and craziness and 100% ministry, and it just all came together like that.
Right. Yeah. And for those of you that haven't seen that, you need to go out there. I don't even know if that album even still exists, but you might want to check that out sometime. Maybe it's on iTunes or something. Yeah,
I'm not positive if the live album is. I think most of the stuff you can find on iTunes or Amazon or different things like that. Some of the stuff is completely sold out in terms of physical copies, but the band has a few physical copies of some of the older stuff, and maybe even a few other outlets do as well. And of course, the new album's available for downloads and that kind of thing.
Okay. And I know you, the song we're getting ready to play in just a few minutes here, we're going to be playing The Man in Black, which was a cover of Johnny Cash, and you actually performed with Johnny Cash on that song. And I think that was probably one of my top favorites, apart from all the others. But it must have been really interesting meeting Johnny when he was still alive.
It absolutely was. In fact, that's, you know, one of the greatest memories I have, you know, in the band and really in my life, in the way that it all came together. We'd had all kinds of different guest artists and stuff join us on the first two studio projects, and Swine Flu in particular. And we decided that on the third studio album, we really wanted to keep it just us, except maybe one song that really called for some black gospel background vocals on Holy My Lord. And then we thought if we could find one special guest that was really, truly special, we would do it. And so our A&R guy called us up, and he said, what would you guys think if we could arrange something with Johnny Cash? And I thought, man, you know, we all thought that would be awesome, but, you know, what chance do we have of that? And he says, well, I'll contact him. We'll see what can happen. And so, as it turns out, John Jr. was having his 18th birthday party. I think it was the 18th, might have been 21st. And we got invited to it. And I guess actually before that, I had read Johnny's novella called The Man in White. Of course, he's known as The Man in Black. Mm-hmm. The Man in White was a novella about the Apostle Paul's conversion, about Saul's conversion. And Billy Graham loved the book, said, you know, it was his favorite fictional treatment he'd ever read of Paul, and that kind of thing. And it was really well done, had a moving forward in it that Johnny had written about a little bit about his spiritual journey and the process of bringing the book into existence. And I really was affected by it. And so I wrote Johnny a long letter explaining who we were, what we were about, why we thought it would be important for him to, you know, to sing with us and that kind of thing. And so that letter I had written, but it hadn't been given to him. And we were invited to this birthday party for John Jr. And it was outside of Nashville somewhere, out in the woods, out in the boonies somewhere, really hard to get to. But there's this huge club out there in the middle of nowhere. And we got there, and it was the most packed with people of any club, any kind of gathering that I've ever been in my life. I mean, you literally couldn't move anywhere without, you know, brushing against somebody and bumping into somebody. It was just crazy. and tons of people there, famous country artists, famous gospel artists, some blues folks, and that kind of thing. And we got asked to, and the main concert stage was this sort of amphitheater shaped thing. And there's a stage at the bottom of this amphitheater, really steep, and steep seats coming all the way up, and then, stairs on the side. And so we were, making the best of being at this thing. And then we were told that we might be able to play a short set. We played a short set. And then Johnny got on with June and a bunch of others, and they started to do some songs. And then Johnny said, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to leave. June is not feeling well and really needs to leave. I need to take her home. So thank you all for coming out for John Jr.'s birthday party, but we're going to be leaving. And we're thinking, we haven't even met Johnny yet. The whole reason we came out here was to meet Johnny and everything. And they started going up the side stairs, and the exit was at the top of these stairs. Of course, they had all kinds of bodyguards and stuff around him. And Johnny was like a politician. He was just reaching out his hand. Hello there. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Good to see you. Good to see you. But they were going quick, and they were out the door, and I was trying to get through this enormous crowd to the door. And Johnny went out, and I spilled out right behind him. And I said, Mr. Cash, I said, I'm in this band called One Bad Pig, and it was talked about that maybe we would sing a song with you or something like that. And I've written you this letter, and if you have time, I just hope that you'll read it. And I handed it to him. He said, well, thank you very much, And they were gone, and that was it. And so I guess it was the next morning or the next that his agent or called, his manager called our A&R guy, and he said, Johnny wants to do this. He really feels like he wants to do this. So we went ahead and cut the track, and I did a scratch vocal of Johnny's vocal, recorded my real vocal, and I had to be back at work in Austin. I flew home to Austin. The other guys were continuing to work on the tracks in Nashville. And when it was time for Johnny to come and cut his vocal, they flew me back out so I could be there to meet him and everything. And we got there, and there were several Christian magazines that were supposed to be there, and the Crook and Chase television show was supposed to be there, and we were really excited because we were going to get to, on national cable TV, talk about our love for the Lord and why we were a band and everything. And we just thought, boy, this is the great chance not just to promote the band, but to get the message of Jesus out. And so we were there, and it was time for Johnny to be there, and he wasn't there, and he wasn't there. And then we started getting calls, and this, different newspapers and magazines said, I'm sorry, but we really can't come today after all. Sorry about that. And Crook and Chase said, hey, we had to send one of our crews over to do this other thing, so we're not going to come out either. And then CCM Magazine, which managed at that time, because of somebody we knew there, to put a little tiny blurb about One Bad Pig in almost every issue. CCM called and said, sorry, we can't be there. And we were going like, oh man, what's the deal? And we were kind of disappointed. And Johnny didn't show, And finally, our bass player, Daniel Tuchek, said, hey, would you guys come out into the studio? Let's just have a prayer time. So we went out in the main room of the studio, and we gathered in a circle and held hands. We were just having a prayer time. And while we were in that prayer time, Johnny came in, and Daniel said, hey, Johnny, we're just praying. Would you like to join us? And he said, well, guys, he said, I'm sorry, I'm late. He said, my mother's on her deathbed, and we're on a death watch at the bedside, and we just felt like we had to get away. And I just felt like I had to get away. Plus, I decided that, I felt like this was really important, what I was going to do with you guys. So I'm here. But yeah, I'd pray with you. And so we got in a circle. We continued to pray. We prayed for Johnny. We prayed for his mother. And we broke up the prayer meeting. And Johnny, started recording his vocal. And we were all in the sound booth, listening. And he was just incredible. That voice was just incredible. And we were blown away. And it was, you know, sometimes the studio just makes people and singers and things sound better. But I mean, he didn't need any help. It was just awesome. And it was so powerful. And then, but our producer, Billy Smiley from Whiteheart, he would say, you know, okay, Johnny, that was pretty good, but would you try this? Would you try that? And we're all just like, oh, no, you can't tell Johnny Cash what to do. But he did, you know, and Johnny was just professional about it. And whatever Billy would suggest or do, he'd try it and that kind of thing. And then on the scratch vocal of Johnny's and my vocal, at the end of the song, just some ad-libs that we'd thrown out there, I had me being really self-deprecating about One Bad Pig, and Johnny kind of bragging about, you know, I'm the real Man in Black and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And Johnny said, hey, I don't want to do that. He said, that's not what this is about. This is about us being together, you know. And so he did his own ad-libs at the end that really talked about, well, one of the things he says is, we're all in this together if we're in it at all. Mm-hmm. And so it was just an awesome experience. And then we shot a little silly string at each other, which was a big feature of One Bad Pig shows afterwards for a photo session. And I was on the plane home that night, and I was reading in the Gospel of Mark, and I got to the place where Jesus rebukes Peter, and he tells him, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not concerned, for you've been concerned with the things of man instead of with the things of God." And as I read that, I heard the Holy Spirit telling me, "Get behind me, Satan, because you are not concerned with the things of God, but with the things of man." He said, "I didn't need you to be on Crook and Chase. I didn't need you to be in a magazine or anything else." He said, "I needed you to be there today so that you could pray for one of my flock, one of my sheep, one of my children, Johnny, who's going through a rough time. And I had y'all there just to support him and to say a prayer with him." And that was one of the clearest times I felt the Holy Spirit speaking to me in my heart. And as I read that on the way home that night. So it was just an awesome experience all the way around.
Oh, that's good. And the only other time I remember you doing a cover song was the Clash Rock the Casbah, and I thought that was a pretty good version of that too. So.
Cool, yeah. We had a lot of fun doing that. We had all kinds of fireworks going off when we did that at Cornerstones with a live video. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because for the live video, we couldn't get rights to play Rock the Casbah on the video, but we were able to get the sound rights to include it on the CD and the tape. And that's just, you know, one of the weird music legality things. So there you have it.
Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and play that song right now, the Man in Black cover of Johnny Cash with One Bad Pig. But before we do, we just want to thank you for coming out and spending a few minutes with us. We enjoyed having you, Carey, and I'd love to have you back again if you ever want to come back.
That'd be awesome. I really enjoyed it. Like being part of the Paul Mash Show. Fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we'll go ahead and play that now, and here it is right here on Paul Mash TV. Don't go away.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash. Well, you wonder why I always dress in black, why you never see bright colors on my back, and why does my appearance seem to have a somber tone? There's a reason for the things that I have on. I wear the black, the poor and beaten down, living in the homeless, hungry side of town. I wear it for the prisoner who is long paid for his crime, but is there because he's a victim of the time. I wear the black for those who never read or listened to the words that Jesus said about the road to happiness through love and charity. Why, you'd think he's talking straight to you and me. But we're doing mighty fine, I do suppose, in a streak of lightning, cars and fancy clothes. But just so we're reminded of the ones who are held back up front, there ought to be a man in black. Hey! I'm the man in black.
The man in black.
I wear it for the sick and lonely old, for the reckless ones whose bad trip left them cold.
Well, the black and mourning for the lives that could have been. Each week when there's 100 fine young men.
Well, there's things that never will be right, I know.
And things be changing everywhere you go. But do we stop to make a move, to make a few things right?
You'll never see me wear a suit of white. Oh, I'd love to wear a rainbow every day and tell the world that everything's okay. But I'll try to carry off a little darkness on my back till things are brighter.
I'm the man in black.
Yeah. The man in black.
Man in black. Oh yeah.
The man in black. Because I care. Because I believe.
I said I'm the man to make the brighter.
I'm the man in black.